What if I told you the next financial crisis could already be brewing and most people won't see it coming? In 2008, millions watched their jobs, homes and savings vanish almost overnight. It was chaos. But here's the thing, history has a habit of leaving clues, and today's financial world is flashing some eerily familiar warning signs. Skyrocketing debt, risky speculation, fragile markets, it's all there. So, are we standing on the edge of another meltdown? In this video, we'll uncover the patterns, expose the cracks, and most importantly, arm you with the knowledge to navigate what could come next. Let's break it down. The 2008 financial crisis was a perfect storm of financial mismanagement, deregulation, and risky speculation. At its core was the housing bubble, fueled by subprime mortgages and unchecked greed. When the bubble burst, it triggered a chain reaction of collapsing banks, plummeting markets, and global economic turmoil. Key events like the fall of Lehman Brothers and the freezing of credit markets showed how interconnected the global financial system had become. The crisis serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of ignoring systemic risks. The 2008 meltdown didn't happen overnight. It was years in the making. Deregulation, such as the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act in 1999, allowed banks to take unprecedented risks, creating a fragile system. As Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz said, "The seeds of today's crises are often planted in the good times." The heart of this crisis was subprime mortgages, risky loans given to borrowers with poor credit. These were bundled into mortgage-backed securities, MBS, and sold as safe investments. When housing prices fell and defaults surged, the system unraveled. Suddenly, these safe investments became toxic, drowning banks and investors. When Lehman Brothers, a 158-year-old institution, collapsed in 2008, it sent shockwaves through the financial world. Markets crashed, credit froze, and global economies teetered on the brink of collapse. European banks, heavily invested in US housing securities, faced their own crises. Iceland's banking system collapsed, and Ireland's housing bubble burst, dragging the country into recession. The global nature of the crisis revealed how quickly issues in one country could ripple across the globe. In 2024, US household debt has soared to over $17 trillion, surpassing pre-2008 levels. Housing prices have surged again, driven by low interest rates and speculative buying. Financial products like cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance, DeFi platforms, much like MBS, lack regulation and transparency, posing similar risks. Global debt hit a record $307 trillion in 2022, according to the Institute of International Finance. This massive debt, combined with rising inflation and interest rates, could cause significant strain on borrowers and lenders. As Ray Dalio warns, we are borrowing from the future at an unsustainable rate. It's only a matter of time before the system breaks. Speculation can drive growth and innovation, but when left unchecked, it leads to disaster. The parallels between the pre-2008 housing bubble and today's surge in digital assets like cryptocurrencies, meme stocks and NFTs show that the lessons of history may not have been fully learned. Before 2008, speculative investments fueled an unsustainable housing bubble. Today, the focus has shifted to cryptocurrencies, meme stocks and NFTs, markets driven by extreme volatility and hype. For example, Bitcoin peaked at nearly $69,000 in 2021, only to crash by over 50% the next year, wiping out billions in value. Markets are irrational in both directions, warned billionaire Elon Musk, reminding us of the dangers of greed and fear in market extremes. Low interest rates have driven today's speculative frenzy, making borrowing cheaper and boosting growth. However, they've also inflated asset prices. In 2023, U.S. housing markets hit record highs, partially due to pandemic-era low rates. But now, rising interest rates are pushing mortgage payments higher. Interest rates are to asset prices what gravity is to matter, as Warren Buffett said, showing how low rates can lift markets but also increase risks. The speculative enthusiasm today mirrors the pre-2008 environment, where unchecked optimism masked underlying vulnerabilities. Cryptocurrencies, though innovative, lack regulation and experience rapid value fluctuations, as seen in the collapse of FTX. Similarly, meme stocks like GameStop show how speculation can defy fundamentals. If these bubbles burst, they could destabilize broader markets, much like the housing crash of 2008. The possibility of another financial crisis like 2008 is real. Despite regulatory efforts since then, many of the same risks persist today, albeit in new forms. Let's look at the warning signs that suggest we might be heading toward another financial reckoning. In 2008, speculative investments fueled the housing market crash. Today, we see a similar frenzy in cryptocurrencies, meme stocks, and unregulated products like NFTs. The cryptocurrency market, once valued at over $3 trillion in 2021, lost nearly $2 trillion within a year, with collapses like FTX highlighting the risks. Markets are irrational in both directions, warned Elon Musk, underscoring the unpredictability of these frenzies. Global debt reached $307 trillion in 2023, surpassing pre-pandemic levels. The U.S. national debt exceeds $31 trillion, with rising debt in households and corporations. High debt makes economies vulnerable. Rising interest rates or slower growth can lead to defaults. Governments' ability to respond to future crises is also limited due to this debt burden. Low interest rates, which helped stimulate the economy after 2008, have inflated asset bubbles in real estate and stocks. During the pandemic, low rates fueled a housing boom, driving prices to record highs. But rising interest rates to combat inflation have increased mortgage costs, slowing demand. In 2022, U.S. inflation hit a 40-year high of 9.1%, eroding purchasing power and increasing financial stress. Ray Dalio warns, "We are borrowing from the future at an unsustainable rate. It's only a matter of time before the system breaks." Speculative investments, rising debt, and inflationary pressures are reminiscent of past crises, and recognizing these warning signs is key to mitigating future risks. While the next crisis may differ in specifics, the dynamics of excessive risk-taking, over-leverage, and speculation remain the same. The 2008 financial crisis was a wake-up call, exposing flaws in the global financial system. While significant reforms followed, some of the lessons have been forgotten, leaving the system vulnerable once again. In response to the crisis, the Dodd-Frank Act was introduced in the U.S., strengthening the financial system with measures like stress tests, higher capital requirements, and living wills for banks. Stress tests in 2023 showed that major banks could handle a severe economic downturn. However, not all institutions were adequately prepared, as demonstrated by the 2023 failure of Silicon Valley Bank, which was exposed to niche sectors and rapid rate hikes. Despite these reforms, systemic issues remain. Shadow banking, unregulated financial activities like those of hedge funds and private equity firms, has grown significantly, posing risks similar to subprime mortgage securities. Furthermore, political pressures have led to the rollback of key Dodd-Frank provisions in 2018, weakening regulations on smaller banks and reducing oversight. Warren Buffett's quote rings true. "Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked." This reflects how risks often go unnoticed during good times, only to surface when the economy falters. Modern financial technologies like cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance, DeFi, and artificial intelligence, AI, in trading have transformed the financial landscape, offering new opportunities but also significant risks. Cryptocurrencies and DeFi platforms like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Uniswap offer decentralized alternatives to traditional finance, providing more control and transparency. The cryptocurrency market reached a valuation of over $1 trillion in 2023. However, these assets are largely unregulated, making them vulnerable to speculative bubbles and market manipulation. The collapse of FTX in 2022 highlighted the dangers of such unregulated markets. As Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned, cryptocurrencies could pose risks to financial stability if their use becomes more widespread without appropriate regulations. AI-driven systems have revolutionized financial markets by increasing efficiency and reducing human error. However, as seen with the 2010 flash crash, where high-frequency trading algorithms wiped out nearly $1 trillion in just 36 minutes, AI can amplify volatility during market stress. Today, AI is more advanced than ever, but poorly designed algorithms or unexpected shocks could trigger widespread instability. The best way to handle a financial crisis is to prepare for it before it arrives. Learning from the past and implementing smart strategies can protect individuals and economies alike. Let's explore actionable steps for both individuals and policymakers to navigate uncertainty and seize opportunities in turbulent times. Understanding how debt, investments, and market cycles work is critical. Informed decisions can mean the difference between financial stability and ruin. With the increasing complexity of financial products like cryptocurrencies and AI-driven investments, education has never been more important. As one expert wisely said, the best defense against a crisis is education. Online resources, courses, and even community workshops on financial literacy can empower individuals to make better choices. Diversifying investments across asset classes, such as stocks, bonds, real estate, and even global markets, can mitigate risks. For instance, during the 2008 crisis, investors heavily concentrated in real estate suffered massive losses. Today, with sectors like tech and green energy booming, diversification can provide a safety net if one sector experiences a downturn. Having a financial safety net is essential during economic uncertainty. Building an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months' worth of expenses can provide a buffer during job losses or unexpected expenses. As inflation rises and interest rates increase, having readily accessible funds can protect against high-cost debt like credit card balances or emergency loans. Post-2008 reforms, such as the Dodd-Frank Act, aimed to curb reckless financial behavior. However, with the rise of new financial technologies like decentralized finance, DeFi, and cryptocurrencies, regulations must evolve to address emerging risks. Policymakers must focus on transparency and accountability in these innovative sectors, to avoid unregulated vulnerabilities. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen recently warned, without appropriate regulations, these new technologies could pose significant risks to financial stability. In today's interconnected world, no country is immune to financial crises. Coordinated global efforts are essential to address systemic risks, especially when disruptions like the pandemic or geopolitical conflicts ripple through economies. Christine Lagarde, President of the European Central Bank, emphasized, economic resilience requires both local discipline and global solidarity. Initiatives like the G20's global financial oversight efforts highlight the importance of working together to prevent crises. The 2008 crisis highlighted the dangers of unchecked greed, excessive debt, and poor regulation. The question isn't if another crisis will occur, but when and how severe it will be. As Ray Dalio wisely said, history has shown that crises are inevitable, but the scale and impact depend on how prepared we are. With inflation and rising interest rates creating financial strain, it's essential to understand these risks and take steps to mitigate them. Individually, financial literacy and diversifying investments are key to navigating uncertainty. As a society, advocating for stronger regulations and greater accountability will help ensure long-term stability. While the next crisis may be unavoidable, preparation and proactive action can reduce its impact and build a more resilient financial future. Remember, as Warren Buffett wisely said, your best asset is knowledge, your worst liability is complacency. The more we learn and stay informed, the better prepared we'll be to navigate future economic challenges. Join the conversation, share your insights, and let's keep pushing for a more secure financial future for all. Thank you for tuning in. We want to hear from you. What do you believe are the most pressing threats to our financial stability today? If today's discussion opened your eyes to the potential risks lurking in our financial systems, don't forget to share and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of economics.